I want to do something that's not a normal editorial. It's news you can use, news that might even save your life. I think we now have to accept that the frantic attempts to stop the coronavirus from spreading are crumbling. The virus is coming here as well, as our Chief Medical Officer said today.
As we've said, we are in a position where we are going to expect to see more cases in Australia.
In fact, over the weekend we lost our first victim to the virus, James Kwan, who was 78, and he was one of the passengers we brought home from the Diamond Princess cruise ship where he contracted the virus. More ominous in some ways is that today we had the first case of one Australian infecting another, a New South Wales man back from Iran infecting his sister. And the Federal Attorney-General, Christian Porter, today warned that we might soon have to accept restrictions like you've never seen here before.
There is the ability of the government to impose, always based on medical advice, but nevertheless impose a human biosecurity control order to person or persons who've been exposed to the disease. Now, what that will mean for Australians is actually something very important. It could require any Australian to give information about people that they've contacted or had contact with, so that we can trace transmission pathways. It will also mean that Australians could be directed to remain at a particular place or indeed undergo contamination. But it's very important to understand going forward that that is a power that can be used for either localised diseased outbreaks in Australia or indeed could be used to restrict individuals from attending places where a large number of people may otherwise choose to gather, such as shopping centres, schools or work.
Yeah, that's something. Now, one reason that attempts around the world to stop the virus have failed has been Italy. Just on the weekend, two more countries, the Czech Republic and Ireland, had their first cases, both involving travellers from Italy, which now has 1,700 cases plus of its own. Now, this has perhaps exposed the blind spot. Now, we don't mind banning travel from China or now Iran, that's banned too, where, by the way, the very religious people say they are licking their shrines, their holy shrines, clean of the coronavirus that's already killed more than 200 people there. But the world wasn't so keen on banning travel from Italy. I mean, beautiful European Italy we know and love. And now look, people flying from Italy have now brought that coronavirus to 29 different countries on 5 continents, to countries like Brazil and Mexico and Malaysia, Spain, Finland, Germany, Greece, Israel. As I asked in my newspaper columns this morning, why has there been this reluctance to ban Italy like we banned countries in Asia? Immunologist Ian Mackay agrees.
I think we should probably be more even-handed in our travel bans. South Korea and Italy should be included in that list because they are places with a lot of cases every day.
Now, OK, we can't totally stop the virus, I get that, but, and by the way, think what it means for the global economy once it spreads in the US. President Donald Trump is now warning of a pandemic. The stock market crash you've already seen so far in the US and here, 10% of market value gone in a week and a half. I don't think you're going to see a recovery soon. But back to that news you can use. As I said, you can't really stop the virus. But we can all help to slow it down, which is important, because that gives researchers more time. They say they need at least a year to find a vaccine. And it could also stop our hospitals from being overwhelmed all at once. But for heaven's sake, don't panic before I go on. Don't panic. In the West so far, of every 100 people who get the virus, 99 recover. But here is the best advice I can find to protect you, and it's advice I've got from the World Health Organization, medical experts here, and particularly from James Robb, who's an American pathologist of decades' experience, who's studied viruses, including coronaviruses, years ago. Now, first, what you need to know is that this is a virus that can make you sick only if it gets into your lungs. And it gets there not so much if you just breathe the air, really. It gets there if someone, say, sneezes in your face, so keep your distance, a metre or more. But mostly, you get the virus to your nose and your mouth through these, your hands. We touch our faces all the time. So the best thing a face mask does really is not protect you by filtering the air. It doesn't really do that, but to stop you touching your face. But someone with the virus might have wiped their face with their hands or blown their nose and then touched a door or a railing or a lift button. They may have spat or sneezed on the table, and the virus then can live there for days. So, tip, big tip, wash your hands often, say the experts. Warm water for 30 seconds with soap, back and front. That's even better than most sanitisers. More. Maybe let's stop greeting female friends with kisses on the cheek. And if the virus spreads, maybe don't shake hands. How about a fist bump? If you're really getting paranoid, open doors with an elbow or your backside. Push the lift buttons with your knuckle. And if you need to blow your nose, use a tissue, not a hanky, and then bin it carefully. Or if you're really caught short, don't sneeze or cough into your hands, but your elbow. And if you do get sick, don't go to work, and call your doctor beforehand. Don't just rock up in the waiting room with all these other poor patients around you. And if the virus really, really somehow does get bad in your area of work, and there's no sign of that yet, don't panic. Consider that you may one day have to stay at home for a couple of weeks, and you'll just order groceries to be dropped off at home, so avoid the crowds in the shops. But, maybe if you're really worried, buy some tin food, but not this panic buying we're seeing. You just buy a couple of extra tins of food each time you're out, because really don't panic. There's only a few dozen Australians with this virus. Most are in quarantine or they've recovered, and your chances of catching it now are very tiny, and your chances of recovery are very high. I just thought you'd like to know and maybe help you stop worrying.